What's up everybody? As you can see, I'm here today with the great John DeChristopher, artist relator for Zildjian Company. Thanks John for accepting to participate.
My pleasure, it's great to be here, Alessandro.
Now we're gonna have a nice chat with John and he's gonna share some of his experiences with us. So John, you are the artist relator for the Zildjian Company, but you know, not everybody knows what the work of an artist relator is. Can you explain a little bit about it?
Well, the job, artist relations, has a few different definitions, but I guess first and foremost is I'm one of the people here. There are a number of us that do this job, but you know, we're the contact person for the artist when they need support, whether they're on the road, in the studio, you know, want to try some new cymbals, maybe have some ideas. It's myself and my team are the people here at Zildjian that work with them. And artist relations actually started with Armin Zildjian back in the 1940s and 1950s when he was working for his dad, Avidus, and he was going out to see Buddy Rich and Louis Bellson and Gene Krupa and all those great drummers from that period. And the whole idea of artist relations was born then, and I was lucky enough to start working here in 1989 with a great program to work with. And I'm just sort of the guy that's running it right now, and there'll be somebody after me and somebody after that and someone after that. So
you say that you are the contact person for all of these artists. So how is it to be the contact person for maybe a living legend like Steve Gadd or, you know, all of those great guys?
Well, it's sometimes, you know, I have to sort of step back. I still, there are times, even though I've been doing this for a long time, and somebody like Steve, who's my good friend, I'm sort of past the idea of being starstruck, as it were, you know, because it's a job, you know, it really is, it's a job. But I do have to step back sometimes and remind myself and think, wow, you know, this is pretty heavy. It's pretty cool, but it's also pretty heavy to be the person that they depend on too. Because they really do. I mean, someone like Steve especially, where you know, he's not someone that I won't say he's not easy to get close to, because he's a he's a great guy. But you know, Steve is a busy guy that really, you know, depends on me as when he needs something. He wants to know that it's going to get taken care of, and those kinds of things. So it's a big responsibility, I guess, is what I'm trying to say, and something that I don't take lightly. And I think you have to get past, when you do this job, you have to get past the idea that you know, it's all about hanging around and schmoozing, and it's work, you know, and
Yeah.
people depend on you.
John, I have another question for you. How does the endorsement program work?
Well, that's a good question. I'm glad you asked that. You know, I'll start by saying that the program for us, the artist relations program, is a big part of our business. You know, we're very supportive of our artists, and I'm lucky that I work for a company that has such a you know, a solid program and sees the value of what the artists bring to the brand. Because in a perfect situation, the artists are out there representing the Zildjian brand, and ultimately they're promoting our products and exposing them to drummers who see Peter Erskine or yourself or Steve Gadd or someone, and you know, that leads to them buying the products. I mean, it's very simple when you think about it, and I think not enough people really stop and think about what an endorsement program means. And I can be very long-winded about this, so I'll try to be very concise in my definition here. But I think what's sort of happened over the years, when I started doing this, I started working in artist relations actually in 1985. My first job, I was only 5 years old, of course, at that time, but my first job in the industry was, I lived out in Los Angeles, and I was working for Simmons Electronic Drums, which at that time was the big electronic drum company. And I was first exposed to what this job is, and then later at Drum Workshop. And it's very different from the way it was then, in the sense that they're way more artists, like on everybody's roster. There are lots more companies, but it was a very special thing back then to be signed as an artist with a company. Endorsements weren't just given out, you know, willy-nilly, as we say, back then. And so what's happened over the years is this, and I'll just, when I joined Zildjian in 1989, it was still very different, in that you had bands that were signed to record companies, and you had this sort of development process with a record company where bands were out there and they'd have a 3 or 5 year lifespan, maybe longer, and you created these relationships with record companies based on the longevity of that band, and you would sign an artist based on what you thought the longevity of that band was, and there was some partnership there, and there was some investment. And so if I got a phone call from the A&R person at Capitol Records saying, I just signed this band, blah, 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 he loves Zildjian, I'm going to have him call you, or his management's going to call you, and we're committed to this band, we've put $1 million into them, we've got a 3-album deal over 5 years, or something like that. That was enough for me to say, okay, I'm going to take a good, close look at this band and at this drummer. But now you don't have that. You don't have any record company involvement at all. You know, we know what's going on in the record business. And so that's trickled back to what we do. So a lot of what people like myself and other people who work in artist relations are doing is, in a sense, guesswork. And you see people being signed, you see drummers that really have no kind of resume, in some respects, being signed as artists. And what that does is it just continues to lower the bar in terms of what the artist relations program really means to a brand. And I'll just say this, for Zildjian, there really has to be something there. There has to be something tangible that this artist can bring to the brand, whether it's being a teacher, you know, being a great educator, being a drummer in a high-profile band, or maybe a working drummer who's getting some great exposure, just maybe even on a not so much a local level, but a national, yeah, maybe not necessarily international, but national level. But for us, there's still some criteria that needs to be met in terms of us signing an artist and how that all works. The problem is there's such a proliferation now of drum companies, cymbal companies, et cetera, that what a lot of companies are doing is, in a sense, just selling factory direct. What they're doing is they're signing up an artist, and they're saying, you're a local artist named so-and-so, and we'll sell you our products at 50% or 60% off the list price. And it makes the guy feel special, and that's great, but at the end of the day, he really should be going to his local drum shop to buy those products for probably the same price anyway. And so what all this has done is led to helping put drum shops out of business. We don't want to put drum shops out of business. We want to keep those drum shops thriving. So I hope that explains kind of where we're coming from and why we're much more selective about the artists that we sign. At the end of the day, again, I could look at our artist roster and we already have a great number of artists on the roster right now. We could double that number tomorrow if we wanted to, just by basically signing a whole bunch of artists that really aren't quite there in terms of their level of visibility and exposure. So.